Okay, for second.
So we're calling the meeting to order and we'll begin roll call.
We actually have a board alternate to swear in this evening. David Silverman.
Hey, ready?
I'm always ready.
So I am going to stand, you stand with me.
Okay.
And raise your right. Would change race, but let's do the right. And then I'm gonna say I, and then after that, if you'd say your name and then repeat after me. I
Davina Hirsch,
do solemnly swear
do solemnly swear
that I will support and defend
that I will support and defend
the Constitution of the United States
the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California
and the Constitution of the State of California
against all enemies,
against all enemies,
foreign and domestic,
foreign and domestic,
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
that I will bear true faith and allegiance
to the Constitution of the United States
to the Constitution of the United States
and the Constitution of the State of California,
and the Constitution of the State of California,
that I take this obligation freely
that I will take this obligation freely
without any mental reservation
without any mental reservation
or purpose of evasion,
or purpose of evasion,
and that I will well and faithfully
and that I will well and faithfully
discharge the duties
discharge the duties
upon which I'm about to enter.
upon which I'm about to enter.
Congratulations.
Say a few words.
Little more than 15 minutes.
And with that roll call, San Mateo County.
Dave Pine.
Thank you. San Mateo County. Atherton,
Rick Zolia.
Belmont,
Hurt, present.
Richmond. Acton, Burlingame. Colma,
David Goss.
Daly City. East Palo Alto,
Carlos Romero.
Foster City,
Yeah, Andy.
Half Moon Bay. Hillsborough. Los Banos. Just making sure he's not on. Menlo Park.
Betsy Nash.
Millbrae,
Anderson.
Pacifica,
Tiger Jazz for the big there.
Portola Valley,
Jeff Alps.
Redwood City,
Omar Martinez.
San Bruno,
Marty Medina.
San Carlos,
Pranita Venkatesh.
San Mateo,
Adam Lorraine.
okay, South San Francisco, Woodside. Okay, and we have a quorum, thank you.
Okay.
Yep, we've got a quorum.
Okay, public comment. Is there any public comment at the beginning of the meeting? Typically, I'm not on the agenda. But if someone has to speak and leave, they can speak. I don't see any public comment. So we'll move on. Can I get an action item to set the agenda and approve the consent items?
Second. Chair Golia,
Yes.
I believe there was a request by staff to reorder items on the agenda.
Okay. Yeah, to switch items 8 and 9. I'm gonna do that. So set the agenda with items 8 and 9 switched, please.
You have to make her the motion.
The amendment was accepted, so you can.
Great, thanks.
Yeah.
Who made the motion? Thank
Anna.
you. Sorry, guys. Okay. And double checking that Mr. Yanes is not online, because we don't have to do a roll call vote if we're all present.
So.
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you. Anyone opposed or abstaining? Okay, that passes unanimously. The next item is the chair report. you know, every meeting feels momentous these days. I mean, tonight's meeting is particularly momentous as we continue through our CEO transition, which an organization really can't go through much of a bigger transition than that, and we'll deal with that later in the meeting. At the last board meeting, I talked about setting up a subcommittee on the surplus funds. And subsequent to that board meeting, there was a discussion at the CAC about the CAC encouraging one of its members to be on that subcommittee. And based on a discussion that I had with legal counsel, it's very clear that we couldn't have a subcommittee that included members of the board and anyone that isn't on the board without it being a Brown Act committee, which I think it would be better if that committee isn't a Brown Act committee. So the way to solve that was to allow staff to manage that committee. So staff is going to manage the committee and they're setting it up, but I just wanted to report back to you that that's going forward, and the members of the committee from the board, as I currently understand it, are myself, Donna, Marty Medina, Betsy Nash, Paul Lianis, Tiger Jazz, Big Stick, and from the CAC, Stephen Booker, and Anders Fung is the alternate in the event that somebody doesn't show up. And there's obviously a good number of staff that are involved, and staff will manage that. That's all I have to report. CEO.
Okay, thank you. We can go to the next slide, please. So a bunch of topics to cover tonight. So we will get into it. Next slide, please. So I wanted to welcome a new member of our staff, Lauren Matheson, has joined us as a Power Resources Specialist. She started on June 16th. So we're very happy to have her. Next slide, please. And we have 7 summer interns. And these are the summer interns that are working with us in lots of different areas of the organization. And you may or may not run across them this summer while they're helping us out. So this is very new for us to have this many people. And we've got a staff of 42. And there's a lot of work to do. Welcome to our summer interns. Next slide, please. And we are still hiring. So we are looking for one more Power Resources analyst or specialist. We're looking for an account services specialist. We're looking for a senior manager of local power resources to do the local development. And we are looking for a chief financial officer or a director of finance and administration. All of these positions are posted on our website. And there's been a change on our website. It used to say join our team. Now says careers. So I'm looking for it this afternoon. Contacted the marketing company. What? It's there. You're looking for it. Next slide, please. So exciting news. We have earned a credit rating of A- from S&P. So hooray, this is our first A level rating. And we're hoping that there will be that we'll get into the budget and you'll be seeing numbers that you already saw last month. And, so we're very pleased that the performance that we have has been lifted. Next slide. So on the legislative side, I wanted to provide a brief update and thank you, Mark, for putting comments together. So the first is SB 537, sponsored by Senator Josh Becker, our local senator. And as noted in your packet, this passed off of the floor of the state Senate by a vote of 32-8. And this bill would expand the Brown Act and allow some members of jurisdictional bodies like ours to attend meetings virtually from remote locations. The bill is now in the state assembly, and on the 15th of June, it was referred to the Committee on Local Government. And you might recall that in the state Senate, the bill was double referred to the Committee on Local Finance and the Judiciary Committee And in the assembly, only the local government committee will consider the bill. And we do not yet know what the date will be for the hearing in the committee. Regarding the state budget, the legislature had until June 15th to pass the 2023-24 state budget. They met that deadline, but the budget was passed, is not the final word. And we anticipate a great deal of budget discussion in Sacramento through the summer months. We all know that the filing deadline for tax returns was extended to October. And so as a result of that, the state is unclear on what the revenues are going to be. Good thing I'm retiring, because I haven't started my taxes yet. A few of us are in that position. A budget issue that we've been closely following is the governor's effort to broaden the scope of procurement by enabling the Department of Water Resources to act as a central procurement entity. And the governor's trailer bill also adds a capacity payment penalty for resource adequacy deficiencies. It seeks to clarify the Public Utilities Commission integrated resource plan authority over CCAs. And we and CalCCA have had frequent meetings with legislators and administration officials to share our deep concerns about the governor's proposal. This goes against what the CCAs believe to be what we're able to do. And it's explained in some detail in your legislative update in your packet. We were able to successfully advocate for the introduction of a policy bill, AB 1373. The resulting hearing and discussion provided a process for addressing and resolving many of the issues we have with the governor's budget bill. This bill passed the assembly with the Peninsula Clean Energy Assembly delegation, members Berman, Pappen, Soria, and Ting all voting in the affirmative. While we were not able to move these issues into a Senate policy bill, we want to acknowledge the strong efforts being made by Senator Josh Becker to help address our concerns. Any questions on the legislative front? Things are changing there hour by hour. Okay, next slide, please. So in our EV Ready program, which is our program to install EV chargers in San Mateo County, 433 EV charging ports have been installed to date, and 91 projects have secured rebate funding from us and are actively in progress now. 200 properties are receiving technical assistance, and about 2/3 of these are for apartments or condos. And the average cost to install a charger in our program is about $4,000, which is a fraction of the cost of other state and IOU programs. And the next slide shows an example of a recent EV Ready project that was finished in San Mateo. This is a rental apartment property. 10 level 2 chargers were installed with power management, which means that the chargers will adjust based on the load they put on them. The total installation cost was $3,000 per charger, and this was installed by Metro Electric and IBEW number. And the project received both technical assistance and rebate funding from Peninsula Clean Energy. Next slide, please. Well, any questions on that? No. At this time of the year, go ahead to the next slide, please. We do our net energy metering payouts. And this graph shows the dollars and the number of projects paid out for net energy metering. I know it's kind of hard to see, but the most were paid out in Los Banos, followed by San Mateo, unincorporated San Mateo County, Redwood City, San Carlos, San Bruno, Daly City, Pacifica, South San Francisco, and Belmont. And the next slide, please, shows the total dollars that we paid out for net energy metering. On the commercial side, we paid out 129.9, almost 130,000. And on the residential side, we paid out over 1.3 million for total 1.43 million in net energy metering. Yeah. Okay, next slide. Coming meetings, executive committee, July 10th, attack on July 13th, and the next board meeting will be on July 27th. So if we can go to the next slide, I'd like to take a little bit of time to just make some comments myself. And back when we started in 2016, I was your first employee, and I feel a great sense of accomplishment on where we've come. We've evolved from a startup to a prominent CA that is financially strong and a leader in innovations. And this was my dream job, to have a startup with a public agency focused on reducing greenhouse gas emissions and delivering clean electricity through renewable energy. So it's been a dream come true for me. I've been in this industry for a few decades now, and had a vision of what the next challenge was that we needed to address. And I was able to implement that vision with the support of all of you, the board of directors, that supports innovation and pushing the envelope, so that we are now leading the industry and in fact the world in achieving the next challenge toward a fully sustainable electricity future, which is namely getting to 100% renewable on a 24/7 basis. So we're innovating the future here, and innovation is what we're about here in Silicon Valley and San Mateo County, and it's been a privilege to have been a part of this, and I thank you for that support. And we've accomplished a lot. Do you remember when we first started and we sent out those enrollment notices, and it's like, how many people are gonna opt out? And we're at 97% participation rate. Whoever would have guessed, our goal was, let's be at least 85%.
Yeah, we modeled it at a 15% opt out.
That's right, and we're at 97%, so that's amazing. We're delivering a superior product compared to the former product that our customers used to get, and it's 50% renewable and 100% clean. And at the same time, we've saved our customers over $107 million since 2016. So we've accomplished. And we're on the path to making it 100% renewable and continuing to save our customers money and showing the world that this can be done. And we've helped you meet your climate action plans with the clean electricity we've been delivering, and we're going to use that clean electricity to further electrify transportation, cars and bikes and buses and Caltrain and buildings. And it's been so fun to build this team. We have an amazing team now, 40 smart, dedicated, and talented staff. It's just the best. We're so lucky to all be able to work together. Unfortunately, we haven't been physically together so much the last 3 years. And we're also a financially sound organization with 3 investment grade credit ratings. So I'd like to specifically thank some of the board members, founding board members, and our founding board chair, Dave Pine. Thank you so much. I know you were on and all of you who were on the selection committee when you hired me. Thank you.
Ready for work.
And Jeff, who followed Dave as the chair, it was great working with you. And Rick, it's been wonderful working with you. We've got a great mind meld. And Donna, working closely with you. You've all made this a really wonderful journey. And a number of you who have been here, others who've been here from the very beginning, like Marty and Carlos and who else? We've had a bunch of changes though. Rich Bonilla, I'm not sure if he's here tonight. Pradeep and John. So thank you so much for your support and for giving me this opportunity. It's been a great ride, and I'm excited to have Sean follow in the leadership position here, and we'll continue to do great things, especially with the support of all of you. So thank you.
Okay, before we extend the recognition beyond your comments to others' comments, we've got the CAC report. Is Cheryl here?
She's virtual.
Sean,
Yeah, I'm here.
you're up.
Thank you. Good evening, Honorable Chair DeGolia and members of the board. The CAC met Thursday, June 8th. Members watched, listened, and asked many questions of Sean Marshall, COO then, when she reviewed PCE's draft budget for the next fiscal year, including key assumptions and notable increases. She described the budget review and approval process, including creating an ad hoc subcommittee to recommend how to use excess funds and inviting a CAC member to participate. With limited context and understanding of budget items, the committee chose not to endorse the draft budget, but made this unanimous recommendation. The CAC appreciates the significant work that went into developing the budget and the details shared with us. We support creation of an ad hoc subcommittee, including a CAC member, to recommend what to do with excess fiscal year 24 funds. We recommend that Stephen Booker serve on that ad hoc committee. Moving forward, we'd like to receive programmatic budget information in order to continue advising on the potential use of excess funds, specifically program funding. The committee heard from Leslie Brown, Director of Account Services, who shared the intricate history of net energy metering and the new framework of net billing tariff. We were eager to discuss and understand how this change affects PCE's current and future solar customers, how it might change the momentum of home electrification, and how we can communicate the changes to customers. Kirsten Andrews Schwinn, Senior Director of Community Relations, announced the relaunch of the eBikes for Everyone program and the board's approval of PCE's Diversity, Equity, Accessibility, and Inclusion Action Plan. She also relayed that PCE received 2 Community Impact Awards from Cal CCA, first place in the equity category for the Community Outreach Grant Program, and runner-up in the decarbonization category for the Reach Codes program. We applaud PCE for this well-deserved recognition and feel proud to share the news in our community networks. It's always a pleasure to talk about PCE's cutting-edge, vital work. That completes my report. What questions do you have for me?
Any questions? I don't see any questions, Cheryl.
Okay, thank you.
And let's just see if there's any public comment. I don't see any public comment. Okay, thank you.
Right.
So the next item on the agenda is recognition of Jan, and we've got a few people that have things to say, but let me just introduce it by saying we all serve on city councils or boards of supervisors, and we know that these organizations don't happen without leadership. Leadership is the heart of what drives things and makes change. And PCE started 8 years ago, really, when we started to organize it, and we brought together the stakeholders in this county. And there was no issue that came before every one of our city councils that received every person's vote on every one of our city councils since 1856 than the issue to approve PCE. And Jan was our first employee and has been our CEO since she was hired as the first employee. That is the essence of leadership. I have a lot to say, but I'll wait until others have been able to say their piece, but I just want to know that the mark that you've left on this organization is going to be here forever. And this is the organization that you identified in terms of its strength, its innovation, and its opportunity. We're going through huge transition, as any living organization does, but your mark is here forever. Okay, so we have a number of people, and the first is Beth Vaughn, who is the Executive Director of Cal CCA. Hi, Beth.
Hey, good evening, Honorable Chair DeGolia, members of the board, and CEO Jan Pepper. Last time I get to say that, I guess. As you said, my name is Beth Vaughn. I'm the Executive Director of the California Community Choice Association, and I just want to thank you for the opportunity to speak this evening on this topic. First, I apologize for not being with you in person. Instead, I'm at an event with legislators, and as Jan outlined, there's a lot going on at the moment, so I'm using this opportunity to advocate for the changes that we want to the budget trailer bill. And I know Jan, as a member of the CalCCA board and executive committee, would encourage me to stay here and secure those changes, whatever it takes, right, Jan? Honestly, I suspect I will imagine Jan's voice in my head weighing in on my decision-making for a long time to come. That's part of her legacy. Anyway, on behalf of the CalCCA board and staff, I want to thank Jan for her tremendous contribution to the community choice aggregation movement. Over several decades, Jan has built an impressive career in California's energy sector, but I truly feel that her legacy will be her time as Chief Executive Officer at Peninsula Clean Energy, and her leadership as well in forming a trade association for the community choice aggregators. I recall when I was hired 6 years ago that it was Jan who promoted the idea of CCAs banding together to jointly procure resources and explore opportunities for shared operations and best practices. In fact, I pulled, Jan, the August 11th, 2017 meeting agenda, where you proposed this and proposed a subcommittee of the board to explore these opportunities. Of course, that idea led to the expansion of CalCCA's services, what we do here, the development of CC Power, and also, I believe, the California Community Choice Financing Authority. In my opinion, Jan walks the talk in order to achieve Peninsula's vision of a sustainable world with clean energy for everyone. And she consistently challenges her CalCCA board colleagues to do more and to do it faster. Most recently, this has been through Peninsula's initiative that Jan has spearheaded to figure out how to achieve 24/7 renewable energy. And with the development of your 24/7 clean energy procurement modeling tool, MATCH, Jan and her team are pushing the envelope to cost effectively reduce emissions and accelerate our transition to the clean energy future. So Jan, I wish you all the best as you close the door on this phase of your career, but something tells me that it won't stay shut. I look forward to seeing what you do next, but hope you also take time to enjoy other activities, including time with your growing family. Jan, it's just been a pleasure, and thank you so much. I'm so glad our paths crossed, and I look forward to seeing what happens next. Thank you.
Okay, and now we've got a couple statements from federal, state, and county representatives. At the federal level, NISU's field representative, Nicholas Artis, is online or in person, I'm not sure.
He's muted.
There he is.
Hi, everyone. Sorry about that. On behalf of Congresswoman Eshoo and her office, it's an honor to say congratulations to Ms. Pepper for your fantastic tenure as CEO of Peninsula Clean Energy. Thanks for dedicating your career to renewable energy and making it accessible for everyone. Congresswoman Eshoo paid tribute to you with an entry into the congressional record, and she is deeply appreciative of you helping us realize our dream of 100% emission-free electricity in San Mateo County.
For anyone that doesn't know, Congresswoman Eshoo read into the House of Representatives congressional record a tribute to honor Jan on her retirement, which I could read if you want to hear it. Okay, I'll do it quickly. Mr. Speaker, I rise today to honor Jan Pepper, CEO of Peninsula Clean Energy, for her groundbreaking work to bring 100% renewable energy to San Mateo County. Jan is retiring after more than 30 years of energy and utility experience dedicated to making clean energy accessible to all. Since 2016, she's led Peninsula Clean Energy, a community choice aggregation program made up of San Mateo County and all of its component jurisdictions, serving more than 300,000 people. As CEO of Peninsula Clean Energy, Ms. Pepper negotiated for 300 megawatts of new solar projects in the Central Valley in California. In 2021, Peninsula Clean Energy started providing 100% emission-free power to all of its customers, and Jan Pepper's vision has prepared the organization to provide 100% renewable energy 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, as early as 2025. It's about twice that long, but that's the essence of it. The next statement is from, I think it is Kevin Fong, Kevin Mullen, field representative.
Come over here.
Yeah. There's good.
Well, thank you for having me. It's a pleasure being here with you this evening on behalf of Congressman Kevin Mullen, as we honor and recognize Jan for her dedicated service to safety, this clean energy. Jan, you've been with PCE since its inception. As others have said, you're the first employee through the door, and as CEO, you've guided the organization from its infancy to the one we know today. Under your leadership, PCE has really advanced, their clean energy initiative here in San Diego, whether it's providing 100% emission-free energy to customers since 2021, or working with local car dealerships to provide rebates for EV purchases, expanding EV charging infrastructure in the region, and more recently working with localities to work on the REACH codes. Jan, those efforts and your leadership will have long-standing benefits to the community and to the environment. And so with that being said, it gives me great pleasure on behalf of Congressman Mullen to present you with this certificate of recognition and to wish you the best in your retirement.
Okay, at the state level, there is a single joint resolution that I understand has been read into the record and represents a delegation of our local representatives, including Assembly Member Pappen, Assembly Member King, Assembly Member Berman, Senator Weiner, and Senator Becker. And I think that Dave Burrito is here, who is the district director for Assembly Member Pappen, and Pablo Velasquez, who is the field representative for Assembly Member Berman.
All right, I'm gonna stand behind the Godfather here. But Jan, I wanted to come here specifically because somebody knew me, because I may not know, Jan was the first employee, but I was the first stopper. So with Dave, we helped to really create this ship, and that was a fascinating time. I had to learn a lot about something I had no idea about. And as we were building this ship with the guidance of Sean Marshall, thank you, Sean, we had to hire the first captain, and that was you. And I really appreciated your calm, really cool, collected approach, because we didn't know what the hell we were doing. It was a little frightening, frankly. Taking on all of this, how many customers are going to come in, what's the financing going to be like, we buy power, But the great thing about it was we knew we were doing something really good. When we started this, when we actually flipped the symbolic switch, which we did, I turned to Carol Groom, former Supervisor Groom, and said, no matter what we do in local government from here on in, nothing will ever eclipse this. She agreed, absolutely. And watching since then, how PCE has grown, what it's going, going beyond the power of procurement and greening our portfolio, but also into e-bikes and Lyft and heat pumps. I mean, everything, the whole portfolio to get to the next level of how do we green, how do we decarbonize our county? We've just done a remarkable job. And although we're sad to lose you, I'm very personally, very grateful for everything you've done. You built this house. Well, thank you very much on behalf of the Assembly Member Company for all of you.
Great.
Second to read off, not the whole thing, let's take paragraphs right here. Whereas the contributions that Jan Pepper has made to the advancement of clean energy and her exceptional leadership and dedication to the peninsula clean energy have been invaluable. And through her steadfast leadership as CEO, she has ably guided the agency's success, providing all the customers with 100% emission-free power while striving to achieve the goal of 100% renewable energy. Now, therefore, be it resolved by Senators Josh Becker and Scott D. Wiener and Assembly Members Mark Berman, Diane Pappen, and Philip Whiting, that Jan Pepper be commended for her distinguished record of professional dedication and for her service for the community and the cause of clean energy, and extend best wishes for a rewarding and gratifying retirement.
Okay. So we've got a couple county comments. And then anyone on the board that wants to make a comment, I'll welcome, and then we'll take public comment. Dave.
On Jan, it seems like yesterday when we were sitting in the office of sustainability in county government center around a table the size of one of these, and you were there meeting for clean energy and buying energy and negotiating with the big players. And it's just remarkable to think how much has transpired over these last 8 years. You really prove what leadership, hard work, and determination can accomplish. I don't think it's often that people can look back at 8 years in their career and say, I really made a gigantic difference to my community. I really moved the needle in a very meaningful and permanent way, and you've certainly done that. It's really been a pleasure to work with you. You've really inspired me by what you accomplished and by your dedication to this important work. So on behalf of Board of Supervisors, I too have a proclamation which I'd love to give to you.
Okay, and the other county level comment, not exactly county, but that's where it falls. I'm really happy to introduce to this board, Grish Balachandran, who is the CEO of Silicon Valley Clean Energy and has some comments.
Yes.
Sure.
Jan, great to see you on this occasion. So happy that I had a little part to play early on in Jan's career. So her journey in public power, this is her crowning achievement, but she started in Alameda when I was there, somewhere in 2010 or so. I think you were with us for maybe about a year and a half before she moved on to her second public power gig in Silicon Valley Power. Did great there. And then I heard while I was in my travels in municipal utility land that you were working for this entity called the CCA. And it was hugely disruptive, right? CCAs have been the biggest disruptive force in California energy space in forever. And Jan was one of the pioneers. I had the pleasure of being the second CEO of Silicon Valley Clean Energy. And PCE has been about 6 months ahead of SVCE. So thank you, Jan, for all the groundbreaking work you've done here. Because I know that the first CEO did depend on PCE and you on all the work that you did. We did a bunch of copying and pasting of what MCE and Sonoma and PCE have done to set ourselves up to. Jan has a great career, so even before Alameda, she worked in Automated Power Exchange, APX, which is where I knew her and Kaz lived at that time, CEO of that company. And they formulated RECs. So this whole thing of having a renewable energy credit and trading green RECs, APX was one of the forerunners. And Jan was in the private sector and was cutting edge. So she was part of that. So she's had in thinking about her career, it's not just the energy side. I guess she decided she had enough time to serve on the Los Altos City Council. So in her spare time, she was politician. Not that there's anything wrong with that. And was the mayor of Los Altos too, did a fantastic job there. I've had the pleasure of working with Jan. We served on several boards together, Cal CCA board and the California Community Power Group. I thank Jan for being a founding member of CC Power and really moving the needle on still many energy initiatives that we do both here in the Peninsula, Silicon Valley, and the state. Thank you for all the cooperation. It's us, our staff, working on reach codes, groundbreaking work that all of you have done in 2019 and 2022. I think we really led that effort, and East Bay Clean Energy joined us in the 2022 cycle. That was great. So just wanted to wish you the best of luck. I know you're going to enjoy the next phase of your career life. And thank you very much for the partnership that you afforded SVCE with us.
Thank you. I too was on the committee that interviewed Jan and ultimately decided to hire her as the first CEO. Dave Pine was there, or Dave Silverman was there. I think Sean maybe was there. I'm trying to remember. I know John Keener's online. He was there as well. I had a lot of memories of that early time, everything from, the big picture of what are we doing as a CCA to little things like where's our next meeting going to be held, trying to book offices in county center, walking through our first office space over downtown and eventually this office space, big things like that, little things like what's our postcard going to look like when we get us in those 4 mailers and all those things. There's a joke in the utilities field that if Alexander Graham Bell were alive today, he wouldn't recognize anything that we call a telephone. But if Thomas Edison were alive, he'd recognize everything that we call electricity. The electric field is not known for innovation or for rapid change, but Jan took the plunge. She was a career executive. She had other records of innovation, but she also came here and did something that none of us knew how to do, as Dave Baruto pointed out. And we were all inventing as we went along, and Jan was the leader there. And look where we are now. It's been stunning to me, and I think for a lot of people to see how rapidly and how well this venture has turned out. And it's again, Jan has been at the helm for all of us. So it's been a lot of fun, and it's been a lot of learning to spend the last 8 years working with you. And I thank you for your efforts. And I know you were not going to be far away from us, so I'm sure we'll see you again. But please take some time off and enjoy the grandchildren and everyone else. Thank you.
Yes, thank you. So Jan, I am going to miss you.
It's been highlight of my 9 years in public service. It's been knowing you and getting to. I want to call out a couple of really important accomplishments I think that you've made here. The first was the strategic plan and working on that and leading that and helping us figure out a framework for this organization, what our goals would be, and how that would, a mission, a vision, and all the goals that we wanted as an organization. When this organization was first developed, we went from being kind of a sort of a startup innovator. You heard what everybody was talking about, to like we flipped the switch and we were sort of like a second generation company. All of a sudden we had all these clients, we had all this revenue coming in, and you didn't really get to go through that transition from small to big company. It went sort of overnight. And for someone to be able to handle that with a strategic plan in place, set a vision, set a mission for 22 elected officials from all over San Mateo County and get the oars rowing in the right direction was really an accomplishment and really amazing. And your stewardship really laid that course. The second thing I really want to call out is your industry-wide groundbreaking work on diversity, equity, access, and inclusion. You have helped all of us to become better equity fluent leaders in the industry. You immediately understood how important this was to the work we were going to do, brought on our consultants, supported that all along the way. And I don't think there's any other CCA in the entire state of California that has done such groundbreaking work. And I want to thank you for your vision. And as another woman in this field and this world, on behalf of every person of color in this room, I think you have really stepped up and said your voices matter, you are important, and we want you at the table. So thank you for doing that amazing work. And then just finally, you've been a great mentor to me, a wonderful role model, and a person that I can really look up to both on your elected side of the work that you do, your graciousness, your poise, your inclusiveness, your sort of forward-thinking progressiveness. And as a businesswoman, you've made a great impact on my career and in my life. And I really appreciate that. It has been the world to me to have our meetings and lunches and the work we do. I so appreciate it, and I hope I can pay it forward to others. And finally, for your friendship, because you have been a wonderful friend in a very difficult business. One that doesn't often allow for the allowance of very deep and wonderfully warm friendship. And I have enjoyed that and I appreciate that. And I think I'm not the only friend you have in this room. You have many, and it's just a very special attribute and characteristic of your leadership. So thank you.
Oh, yeah, John Keener.
Hello, everybody. I'm a former board member from Pacifica. And I remember Jan's first meetings on the 5th floor of County Center, mentioned by others, and later at the world headquarters of Peninsula Clean Energy upstairs at the former San Mateo Credit Union, which we had to enter, at the back entrance when it was unlocked. Looking back, PCE seemed really small. And I remember urging power companies to sharpen their pencils when she was negotiating a deal, and she got us a better deal. Those were exciting times. And from then until now, it was mostly Jan who was responsible for hiring our fantastic staff. And this is in addition to all the other activities spearheaded by Jan to grow PCE into the present, including the 24/7 initiative. And she did all this with a smile on her face. Thank you, Jan. I'll miss you, and enjoy the next stage of your life and your career.
I've kind of said the heart of what I wanted to say, but really we've partnered together. I mean, this has been a partnership. And I know that when Jan first joined PCE, she was a power resources expert. She had the skills to know the electricity business, which none of us had. I mean, Pradeep knew some of them, but the rest of us really didn't know the heart of this business, and Jan did. If this was Jan's first CEO job. So there was there was a real give and take in the partnership that developed. And, it took you a while to figure out how you balance managing people with dealing with the technical issues of running a business and balancing the numbers to make the business work, which was no small matter. And we really prioritized, and you led the prioritization of making sure that we were financially stable. That was a very serious focus for this organization, that you played a really important role in, not just as CEO, but as strategically leading it. And the strategic plan emerged out of those actions. And, I said this, I think, to Donna last year, or the year before, when we were doing your review. You had totally grown into the CEO role. That was a big change for you. You really took it on. And look at our organization now. We were a startup. We were very thin when we started. The only piece that wasn't thin was the board. We were a 23 member board. And now we're a growth industry. And not just a growth business, but innovative and at the cutting edge of some incredibly important strategic issues that we all know are going to be changing over this year. There are big issues ahead of us, but you've laid the foundation, the framework that lets this grow and go forward in a way that is incredibly important, and it is important for you to remain around and be connected with. And I want to see that happen. So thank you. It's been a pleasure, really a pleasure. Yeah, I see Ann. I just want to see if there's anybody else in here. Ann Schneider.
Hi, hey Jan, I'm down at Cal Cities on Environment Policy Committee today and Transportation and Public Works tomorrow, and how proud I am of all the work you've done and all the staff at Peninsula Clean Energy, because we're talking about amazing programs down here, but we've already done it in San Mateo County. So from the city of Millbrae, we are very grateful for the PPA, the public purchasing agreements. And I hope you will come up to Millbrae when we get our solar up on our new rec center, and you and staff work with us on a design build project that was basically pulled together, by the skin of our bones on that. And I also want to tell you, as somebody who always spoke up for the environmental attributes of an energy project, that you listened, that you made it happen, and that you brought that up to the greater statewide community choice aggregate world. So I will miss you. The city of Millbrae will thank you. I think Anders has a proclamation from the city of Millbrae. We can't compete with Congress and the state, but we're just very grateful, and we wish you the best of futures. And come visit.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Much has been said, Jen. Obviously, I will repeat all the major accomplishments that has already been discussed throughout the time. Piggyback on what Donna has said a moment ago, not only did you brought along all 22 elected officials throughout the entire county, you also brought along 97% of all households in San Mateo County to change the way how we use energy, how we produce energy, and how energy is being consumed, and produce a much cleaner and much more renewable world within our space here. So I want to thank you for your leadership. Much congratulations to your well-deserved retirement. On behalf of my city and my council, I have a commendation for you. I hope you will receive it.
Okay, Carlos?
Yeah. Jan, you may be understanding this world of how it gets traded, this whole market. Much easier for me to feel comfortable about. Came to the board a year after you all started. And you were certainly helpful in introducing me to this world. But I think the other thing I want to say is that I am going to sorely miss you, but I'm glad that you're going to be available to us, the board and to Sean, in the interim to make sure that this transition of what is certainly the Godfather's baby. And I think yours. So thank you again for all that work. Thank you for listening to all the things that the board wanted to do and saying yes to some and no, we can't do others. And for your innovative approach to what we've done in San Mateo County, which I think many folks in the state have looked to as an example. I will miss you, compañera.
Any other comments? Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Really heartwarming to hear all these comments, and I'm gonna miss all of you.
And at the end of the meeting, we're gonna have a little cake and a little sparkling cider, so. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the fiscal year 23-24 budget.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Well, I noticed you switched items 8 and 9, but you forgot to switch me to be going after this tribute to Jan. So hopefully hopefully you'll be able to bear with it. And I apologize for not being able to be in person. So tonight is the hopeful approval of the board of directors. Next slide of the budget. Next slide, please. The resolution. Go back. There you go. The resolution is for the board to approve total operating expenses in an amount not to exceed $350,657,317, and I will explain why we're doing it that way in a moment. Next slide, please. For context, we met with the Audit and Finance Committee in the draft on May 16th, and then with this board a month ago to review the initial draft. And then we updated a few things, which I'll walk you through the summary of those updates with the Audit and Finance Committee on June 12th and reviewed with the Executive Committee on that day. The review with the Audit and Finance Committee also provided a recommendation that was included in the memo to you, indicating that they approved a resolution to recommend approval by this board. And then tonight is the hopeful approval by this board. Next slide, please. Since you saw the initial draft budget a month ago, we've made a few minor changes. We updated our year-end forecast for the year ending in June, which is in 8 days, reflecting April 23 financial results. We made some minor adjustments to the program's budget and modifications to the assumptions of the GovPV, which is on rooftop solar for municipal government projects in the prepayment structure. And we made some minor modifications to our days cash on hand calculation, but nothing significant between the budget you saw last time and the one that's being proposed this evening. Next slide, please. This is the same slide, next few slides that you saw last time, but a review just of the primary key assumptions that form the budget. In our current structure, our customer rates, which drives our revenues, are based on PG&E generation rates. And there's a slight decline in those rates proposed or budgeted or planned, projected for the next 4 years. In this year's budget, which starts on July 1, in 9 days and goes through the end of June 2024, there is an increase of 1% of the PG&E generation rates planned on January 1, since PG&E's rates are done on a calendar year basis. The PCIA rates are also pretty influential in PCE's customer rates. Those are already pretty low, and the projection is that they will continue to decrease. On January 1, 2024, they actually are projected to be negative, but we have assumed them to be zero from an already low rate today on January 1, 2024. And then after that, they are projected to go up significantly in the next 4 years. However, even if that comes to pass, the next 4 year, the fourth year out, is still not nearly what it was in the worst year of 2021. The resulting customer rates to PCE customers is that they're relatively flat for the next 3 years, and then a little bit lower in 27 and 28, reflecting the PCIA projections, but still well above the low year of 2021. Any questions on that? Okay, next slide, please. Cost of energy is budgeted at $311 million, an increase of $39 million over the FY23 forecast. As I mentioned last month, but I wanted to make sure I drew attention to it. The overall budget includes 2 conservatism contingencies, an energy cost volatility of $15 million per year, but the year we're approving tonight is only this coming year, so $15 million. If you remember, we added a $15 million contingency into last year's budget, and we needed that and more, since our energy costs will likely, we won't know until we close the year, but they will likely be several $million above the budgeted level, which included a contingency. Most of that contingency was used up in one week period in last September, around Labor Day, when there was an extended heat wave. And then we also have built in a contingency for the work that's being done over the next 4 years on signing up contracts to achieve the 99% time coincidence renewable. To achieve that objective, there will be numerous contracts that need to be signed on a schedule that we planned for over the next 4 years. And contracts have a way of moving, the dates end up moving some, and or the developers get delayed in terms of their permitting or their construction. And so we've built in, to the extent that we are not able to sign all those contracts on the schedule that we're planning, that there will be additional costs that would be incurred to buy product energy at the market value. So we built in a $56 million contingency over the next 4 years, although the contingency for this coming year is very small, less than $1 million. And even without those contingencies in the current budgeted year of 15 million plus the 770,000, the total cost would still be 9% higher than our forecast for FY23. And then I wasn't planning to walk through it, but I'm happy to. There's also some the large significant programs around solar, municipal solar, that have a significant capital outlay planned, and those mostly affect the outer years, although there's $7.5 million in the fiscal year 24. Any questions, areas that you'd like me to explain further? Okay, next slide, please. This, I'm sure, is difficult to see on the screen, but I'll try to draw attention to it. The top blue line is operating revenues. The columns across the top are the 2023 budget, our forecast for 2023, and the variance. So just in those three columns, the budget is 360, nearly 368 million. We project that we'll achieve 433 million. So we expect to end the year that's ending next week at $64 million above that budget. I'll walk through that. So a little bit more going down. Total operating expenses of 294 million were budgeted. We expect to be very close to that. So about 1% in total off, although so $2.6 million above the operating expenses that were budgeted last year. The yellow highlighted line is the change in that position. So the budgeted last year was 73.9 million. We expect to end the year at 138 million. So $65 million above that, almost all as a result of revenues. And we expect to end the cash, which is that orange highlighted line, of $262.8 million. And then on the far right is the proposed budget, $474 million of revenues, which is about $50 million, $40 million more than we expect to end this year. Total operating expenses of 350.6 million. That's the number that we are asking the board to approve. And we started this practice a couple of years ago, where instead of the board approving individual line items, although I will show you the summary line items on the following slide, the board approves a single operating expense number, and that allows the staff to be, things to happen throughout the year that allows us to be above or below, as long as the total doesn't exceed that operating expense, and then we have to come back to the board. Moving down a couple of rows to the change in that position, projected in a budgeted level of almost $125 million, and in the orange, projected cash at the end of next year, June of 2024, of 377 million, with an unrestricted days cash on hand of 393, ending that. The next slide has a slight bit more detail, but let me pause there to ask if there are any questions. Okay. Oh. Questions?
No questions.
Okay, next slide, please. Again, this is even harder to see, but it's the same numbers and the same colors. Operating revenues in the far right column of 474 million, operating expenses of 350.6 million, and change in that position of 124.6 million. Again, highlighted with the arrow, what we're asking the board to approve. The cost of energy is about $40 million higher in the coming year, which makes up the bulk of the increase for operating expenses. Okay, next slide, please. This is a look, although the board is not being asked to approve, but this is a 5-year outlook of what we expect to happen based upon all the many assumptions that are made about energy prices and revenues and PCIAs and PG&E generation rates, and program costs, and many more that I haven't mentioned. But as you hopefully can see, revenues are projected to go from 474 million, which is the budgeted level, the proposed budgeted level, to 485 million in 2026, and 487 million in 2025, and then dropping off in 2027 and 28, mostly as a result of increasing PCIA, and therefore lower revenues in those years. Still expected in the highlighting the yellow highlighted line. Even with those reducing revenues, we still expect our net change in that position to be positive, although significantly less in the 2028 out year. And all the way to the bottom, net unrestricted days cash on hand, achieving a level of 464 days in the 2028 year. As you heard, we heard earlier from Mr. DeGolia, there is going to be a committee set up to have or at least a group set up to discuss what levels of reserves we should have, whether this is more than we need, and if so, how much more, and then what would be done with it. And none of those discussions are reflected in these numbers at this point. Next slide, please. This is the same as the last slide, 5 years with all the detail across those multiple line items that I won't spend time on, but the same highlighted totals is in there. It'll be posted on the website if you want to look at it soon. And then that's the end of my slides, except the next one, which is a reiteration of the next slide, please. Next reiteration of the recommended resolution of expenses not to exceed $350.6 million plus dollars.
Thank you, Andy. Are there any questions from any members of the board? I don't see any questions. Is there any public comment? I don't see any public comment in the room or online. If anybody on the board has any comments, we welcome them. Donna?
So I'll go ahead and make a quick comment, which I just want to, first of all, thank the finance committee that spent a lot of time working on this and working with Andy and the team and the staff, Jan. You know, these numbers, what we found over the years, because we don't have a variance analysis from behind, you know, a rear-looking variance analysis, I think what you're going to find is that these numbers are pretty volatile and there can be a lot of fluctuation in them. So we do the best we can to estimate them, but of course, market pricing is very complicated and subject to the vicissitudes of many, many factors that are, you know, overlaying onto pricing. The PCIA and the bulk of this budget is not, you know, our salaried staff and office space, it's buying electricity. So, you know, we have many, many new members on this committee. If you want that shut down, it's really annoying. We're gonna shut that for you. Thank you. You retire your desk over there. There you go. If you take a look at this, or we look halfway through the middle of the year or at the end of the year, and we start to see that there's large variances, I don't want anybody to panic over that because it's quite likely to happen. I think really.
And you can see there was a large variance in this year, right?
Yeah.
We were up $65 million over what we expected.
Yes, and we had a
That was
year
a shock.
that we thought we were gonna lose 40 million, and we were actually up quite a bit. So there's just a lot of, it's very hard. And the farther we go out on these numbers, the more difficult it gets to narrow down and hone in on them because of legislative work. You know, we heard about the Western Grid, just so many factors that are influencing it. But I do want you to be comfortable that the finance committee has looked them over pretty thoroughly, and we've asked a lot of questions. I really want to thank everyone on that committee. And we are recommending the adoption of this budget and happy to answer any questions. I'm very happy to see we're going to do this work on the days cash on hand requirements. We're going to compare what other organizations are doing, see where we fall in, think about the volatility, run some analysis, and see how much we need to keep flexible and in there. As you know, if we run into the red and get to a point where we're a negative, you know, if the agency were to go negative, we would have to raise rates on our ratepayers, and that's something we really don't want to do. So that's kind of our number one mantra, is making sure that we, can keep our 5% discount and maybe even more, and that even if the markets get really volatile, we have enough of a cushion. So with that.
Jeff.
Yeah, I just wanted to highlight one thing. Andy pointed out his assumptions, but I'll just repeat it. I think it's worth noting. Our commitment to 24/7 time coincident power is actually it's a mitigating factor in industry volatility. It actually protects us against a certain amount of price swings.
Yep.
The building our own supply of renewables and storage actually makes us somewhat less susceptible to some of the volatility that Don was talking about. So it's not just the right thing to do for the environment and the planet, it's actually a really good thing to do from a business and strategic standpoint. So I just wanted to make sure people understand that. The problem now is that we can't buy the power and storage fast enough because of supply chain and other things that are happening. And that's the thing that's sort of holding us back right now. And thanks to Andy and the staff for all the good work of putting this budget together. On a lighter note, I was just thinking, looking at these numbers and remembering back when we first started and we had to go to the county and I think Barclays and beg them to loan us $12 million to start operations, promising then we'd be able to pay all that back. And I look at that, look at these numbers now and just sort of, it makes my head spin a little bit. So it's just another one more little testament to the work of the last 8 years. Thank you.
Any other comments?
Well, and I'd also like to thank Andy for kind of stepping in.
Yes.
Partway through this process and pulling it all together, and with Haley's help as well. So, we knew how to do it, so we knew it would be easy for him, but we made it look easy. But thank you, Andy, for stepping up to the task here.
Yeah, the thing that isn't easy is the volatility.
Yeah.
The volatility is really enormous, and notwithstanding the volatility being enormous, our projection, I mean, 5 years is kind of ridiculous, but it goes from $350 million in 1 year to $500 million. So this is why we're having this surplus funds committee, and it's not just to look at what our reserves should be and what our days on hand should be, it's what to do with the money. So we're gonna have that discussion and we're gonna take that slowly, and that's gonna be completely discussed here at the board level. We'll take recommendations from the committee, but these are board decisions and they are big decisions that we all wish we had this problem in each of our cities.
Into the car.
Sure, you want to?
Yeah. The only last thing I'll say is the A- credit rating that Jan achieved, which is an incredible accomplishment, and thank you. I know you're used to A+, but she complained to me. She goes, "I've never had an A-." Like, well, I had a lot of B- in my life, and I turned out okay. So you're probably. But I really appreciate Jan's commitment to working on working on our investment grade. And the reason our investment grade is important is because we have counterparty arrangements with the PPAs and the developers. And the higher our credit rating, we've been able to get rid of our lockbox, remove away some of the deposits and things we've had to put in. It's allowed us to free up cash flow and not have to, and we have a reputation of being a good credit. We pay our bills. We're doing good work, we have a reserve, and that's really attributable to you, Jan, and it really is reflected here in these strong financials that this organization, I think we have been told, I heard the rumor mill that we have some of the strongest financials in the CCA world. So, some have gone bankrupt, they've launched, they haven't been able to make it, and then we've had at least one gone bankrupt. So for us to actually get through this and get this strong footing, it's really attributable to you and the good work and the vision that you had in getting that great credit rating.
Okay, so this is an action item. If I can get a motion to approve the resolution that's up on the board. Jeff, thank you. Can I get a second? Dave, thank you. We don't have any board members online?
Let me just double check, but I don't think so. Nope.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. Passes unanimously. The next item on the agenda is approval of the staff's recommendation on delivery of 100% renewable energy annually by 2025 and on a 99% time coincident basis by 2027.
And I think we're gonna hear from Mehdi. Are you making a presentation?
Yes, hi, Jan.
Okay, and Shari,
Yeah.
or Harvey.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mehdi Shariari, Manager of Planning and Analytics in the Power Resources team. And today I'm going to discuss our recommendation to update our strategic plan priority to shift our time coincident renewable target to 2027. Next slide, please. This is an outline of the presentation. I will briefly talk about the background, then talk about the timing of our 24/7 goal, and at the end, I will talk about our recommendation. Next slide, please. Next slide. So back in November of last year, Board of Directors adopted the staff's recommendation on delivering 100% renewable energy annually on a 99% time coincident basis by 2025. This recommendation was based on the market condition that we observed in middle of 2022, and the results of this analysis and recommendation was published as part of a white paper early this year. And since then, the market conditions have significantly changed. That's why we are coming to the board with an updated recommendation. Next slide, please. And before talking about our recommendation, why we are coming up with this recommendation, I would like to talk briefly about what is 24/7 goal and why we are doing this 24/7 strategy. We currently purchase enough renewable and carbon-free supplies to meet 100% of our customers' demand in the same year. And to further explain this, I will use the graph here. So on the vertical axis, we have annual energy in megawatt hour. And on the horizontal axis, we have two bars. The bar on the left, which is in black, shows our customers' electricity demand in 2021. And the bars on the right in blue and green shows our supply of electricity from renewable and carbon-free products. And you can see on annual basis, these supply and demand are matching each other. This annual framework is the current industry standard, but it does not show whether supply and demand are matched on an hourly basis. And to further explain this, I will use the graph in the next slide. So here you can see a heat map of Peninsula Clean Energy's emission footprint in 2021. So you can think of this heat map as like a matrix or a table where there are rows and tables. Each row is an hour, and when you go from top to the bottom, you go from 12 a.m. to 6 a.m., 12 p.m., and so on. And each column is a single day. So when you move from left to right, you go, for example, from January 1st all through to December 31st. And each pixel is a single hour in the year. So you will have 8,760 pixels. And the color of each pixel basically shows how much emission was associated with our electricity supply in any hour. When there is like a green pixel, it means there was no emission. But as you move to yellow, orange, and red pixels, there is more emission associated with our electricity supply. So if you look at like the middle of the graph, like the spring and the summer months, you will see a lot of green pixels. There were a lot of like solar or in general renewable generation from our portfolio. So there was basically zero emission in a lot of hours. But when you look at like the two sides of this like heat map on the left and the right, you will see a lot of orange and red pixels. So a lot of emission associated with our portfolio. And that's when you look at like an hourly matching of supply and demand. basically during those like summer months, we have excess supply or oversupply of renewable electricity. But in the winter months, we don't have enough renewable electricity to supply our customers' demand in each hour, basically. And in those hours that we don't have enough electricity, we are going to be relying on the system power, and that's mainly coming from gas plants, and there are emissions associated with that. So basically, our hourly goal is to match our electricity supply to customer load on an hourly basis. And by doing so, we are basically making this whole heat map green. So all the pixels would become green. And in this way, we will not be relying on the system power, and we can reduce emissions in the most efficient way. Next slide, please. Reducing the emissions of PCE's portfolio is not the only benefit of the 24/7 or hourly matching. There are also other significant benefits. Another benefit is that it can help us to reduce the risk of exposure to volatile market prices. This like 24/7 strategy, we will procure like around the clock energy, such as geothermal or out of state wind that can generate energy during the overnight or winter months that can provide a hedge against the volatile market prices by providing and matching our customers' demand with renewable electricity supply in any hour. Other than these benefits to PCE, there are some additional benefits to the whole society by doing and following a time coincident renewable energy. We will be basically reducing emissions on the grid and also improve grid operations. Next slide, please. And one of the questions that we are asked often is why we are not considering large hydro, which is a carbon-free resource and can help us to achieve a reduced emission portfolio. Before answering that question, I would like to briefly talk about like the renewable versus carbon-free resources. There are some resources such as solar, wind, geothermal, or small hydro that are considered renewable. They're also carbon-free. But there are also some other resources such as large hydro. While they are carbon-free, they are not considered renewable under the California Renewable Portfolio Standard due to their environmental impacts, basically. While large hydro is carbon-free and can help us reduce emissions, but there are some challenges associated with large hydros. There are no new additional capacity available, and no long-term contracting opportunities are available. And most importantly, delivery of like hydro energy is subject to several constraints, several conditions and operational constraints, which basically makes this resource not dependable to meet the time coincident goal. And we will not have like any control over when this resource can deliver, basically. Next slide, please. So this was a brief background on why 24/7 strategy is important, why we are following this goal. And in the next few slides, I will talk about the timing of the 24/7 goal and why we think there are benefits in shifting this goal to 2027. Next slide, please. So as I mentioned earlier, the board adopted a staff's recommendation last year for achieving the 99% time coincident by 2025 target. And achieving this goal as part of the white paper, our analysis and our presentation that we showed, we need significant amount of new capacity in our portfolio, mainly from geothermal and wind, to be able to achieve this target. And we have been looking to find these resources, but we have noticed significant delays in development of these resources, which basically means fewer resources are available to deliver renewable energy to PCE by 2025. There are like different contributing factors such as global supply chain disruptions, labor shortage, and interconnection delays in CAISO. They have also been trying to find short-term contracts with existing renewable resources, but we haven't been able to do so. As a result, achieving this 24/7 goal in 2025 or even 2026, given the limited resources that are expected to be available online, is infeasible at this point. Next slide. And since then, staff has been working on updating the 24/7 modeling with the information from 2 renewable energy and storage RFOs that we have issued this year, and tens of bilateral reach outs to different counterparties. And we have focused on studying the possibility of achieving the 24/7 goal by 2027. Similar to the results that was shown in the previous slide, our 24/7 goal relies heavily on procuring wind and geothermal resources. And as most of you are aware, new geothermal and especially in-state wind resources are pretty limited at this point. As a result, achieving our 24/7 goal, at least in a short time frame, has become contingent on our ability to find suitable out-of-state wind resources. These resources such as wind from New Mexico or Wyoming have very favorable generation profiles that could complement our solar resources. And our analysis have shown that without these resources, such as out-of-state and new geothermal, time-coincident renewable energy procurement would be infeasible, or in the best case scenario, could be achieved with a risky and inefficient portfolio. Next slide. And by doing these different analyses, running different RFOs, we believe there are several benefits by shifting this goal from 2025 to 2027. As mentioned in the previous slide, we have opportunity to contract with a more diverse set of resources that can help us to build a more optimal portfolio. We can avoid excessive overprocurement and can help us to build a portfolio that in the long term has reduced cost and exposure to the market. Next slide, please. Next slide. And finally, our recommendation to the Board of Directors is to update Peninsula Clean Energy's strategic plan priority to deliver 100% renewable energy annually by 2025 and deliver 100% renewable energy annually on a 99% time coincident basis by 2027. Just a note that staff will continue to monitor and evaluate the opportunity of achieving the 99% goal by 2027 and will promptly communicate any changes to the Board of Directors. Thank you. Any questions?
Yeah. Thank you, Chair. I did have one question. I was just a little curious about why in-state wind seems so limited and not an option we're able to pursue as much perhaps as the out-of-state wind options. Is it that California is not as good at generating wind as New Mexico or Wyoming, or are there other detailed restrictions? I was just curious.
So in general, for example, New Mexico and Wyoming have better wind resources compared to California, and most of a good size for wind development in California have already been explored and developed. So there are no good wind sites available for further wind development in California. And a lot of wind plants in California, depending again on the location, their generation profiles are not favorable as out-of-state wind. When I say they are not favorable, I mean out of state wind generally generates in like the winter and overnight hours, that would be a good complement for our solar resources.
Thank you. Just for those that haven't been on this board a long time, that it's a very clear issue that almost 100% of the available onshore wind in California has been harvested or is in the process of being harvested. So you don't have the same availability. Access to wind out of state is relatively new. So that's where they've got to build these transmission lines to make it available, which is really a big deal. But pretty much the wind in onshore wind in California is fully harvested. Carlos.
So, Mary, can you remind me, I thought sometime within the last year, we talked about this 99 being closer to a 97 because of the marginal costs related to getting to 99. Have we moved away from that, or are we saying 99%? 97 is the new 99%.
So basically, that's like the difference. When we say 99%, we mean 99% on the planning basis. That 97% was when we got like to the real-time operation. And when we consider, for example, the variability that we would see in like load variability and the uncertainty we would see in like generation of like wind and solar, that would result in like a lower time coincident percentage compared to what we planned.
That it makes sense why we have those things.
Other questions? Mehdi, at some point, my understanding is you showed it in the color slides on the 24-hour, 12-month basis, that there's system power that we're purchasing to satisfy demand when renewable or non-fossil generating power is not available, either mostly in the winter months, but sometimes also in the nighttime. And the first slide you put up showed our total load, and the second bar showed renewable versus non-renewable but clean power. It didn't show the system power. At some point, and not now, but at some point, I think it's really important to educate the board about how much system power we're buying and how we reconcile that to end up under the CPUC definition of 100% clean power for the year. I believe what we're doing is we're buying a significant amount, at least of clean power RECs to qualify the power that the system power that we're buying. But at some point that really needs to be laid out to the board so the board can understand it. Okay, let me see if there's any. Yeah, okay, let me see if there's any public comment. Does anyone have public comment on this? I don't see any public comment in the room, and I don't see any online. If anyone has further comment, now's a good time to give it. Otherwise, this is an action item and I need a motion.
Okay, I'll make motion to approve the, what do we call it this? The
I think it's a change to the strategic goal.
okay, so moving from the 2025 to 2027, I think is the big difference on the renewable 24/7 time listed energy structure.
Okay, thank you, Marty. I don't think we have anyone online. Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The next item on the agenda is to approve the resolution delegating authority to the chief executive officer to execute a power purchase agreement with SunZia Wind Power and any necessary ancillary documents. And that will include a potential replacement PPA, which I think Sarah will describe to us.
Sarah's here to go over this. We also have representatives from Pattern Energy to also answer questions.
Great.
Thank you, Smith. Great. Thank you. Good evening, members of the board, members of the public. My name is Sarah Mata. I'm a Power Resources Manager on Royce Hughes Power Resources team. I'm pleased to recommend to you tonight that the board approve a power purchase agreement with SunZia Wind. Yeah, we've been working on this agreement for a long time. And we wouldn't be here tonight without the leadership of Jan, as well as Royce Hughes, Director of Power Resources. The next slide, please. Rick laid out the recommendation, which is rather lengthy here. We would ask you to approve the resolution delegating authority to the CEO to execute this power purchase agreement and any necessary ancillary documents, including a potential replacement PPA with the same terms and conditions as the agreement presented tonight, except for necessary administrative changes with SunZia Wind Power Co. LLC or an affiliate of SunZia Wind Power LLC with a power delivery term of 15 years. Starting at the commercial operation and date on or about September 30th, 2026, in an amount not to exceed $858 million. Next slide, please. So tonight we'll go over an overview of the project as well as how it is expected to operate and fit in our portfolio. And we'll also talk about the fit of our strategic plan, dovetailing off the presentation that I just gave on 24/7 goal. Next slide, please. Next slide. So the SunZia Wind project is being developed by Pattern Energy. It's located in New Mexico, east and south of Albuquerque. It's the largest wind project in the Western Hemisphere at 3.5 gigawatts. PCE would contract for a 220 megawatt share, making this, along with Wright Solar, the largest projects in our portfolio. The annual generation is just under 700,000 megawatt hours, representing a 36% capacity factor. And this would account for approximately 13% of PCE's load. The term would be 15 years. The guaranteed commercial operation date is September 30th, 2026, although there is some flexibility for the project to come online slightly earlier or later than that. And the site is over 1,000 square miles of private and public land in New Mexico. Next slide, please. Because this project is located outside of California, there requires transmission to deliver the energy to PCE. So Pattern is also building the SunZia transmission line, which will carry the energy from the project in New Mexico to the Pinal Central Station in Arizona. And from Pinal Central, Pattern will contract with third-party transmission providers listed here to get the energy to the Palo Verde Station, which is considered to be part of the California ISO. So once the energy gets to Palo Verde, Peninsula Clean Energy can receive that energy and use it in our portfolio. Next slide, please. It's structured very similar to our other PPAs. We will pay for all of the energy produced by our share of the project at a fixed rate in dollars per megawatt hour with no escalation over the term. As I mentioned, it's a 15-year term. Peninsula Clean Energy will receive all of the energy and renewable energy credits from their share of the facility. We can also receive resource adequacy this project. However, we have to obtain what are called import allocation rights from the California ISO. There's a standard process for us to obtain these import allocation rights, and we go through it every year with the Cal ISO. So we are confident we will be able to acquire most, if not all, of the import allocation rights we need to qualify this project for resource adequacy. Even if we don't get all of the import allocation rights that we need, we can still count whatever portion that we get as resource adequacy. And our modeling team led by Mehdi has done many analyses, and with the expected amount of import allocation rights we can get, we expect to, receive very high value of resource adequacy from this project. And finally, Pattern will be the scheduling coordinator for this project, scheduling the project with the Cal ISO. Next slide. Placement PPA concept mentioned in the recommendation, as well as mentioned by Rick. This is a very large project, and it requires a very large amount of financing for the project to go forward. And in order to facilitate the financing of this project, Pattern requires the ability to bifurcate or transition all or part of the project to an affiliate at a later date. This bifurcation or transition would be implemented by executing a replacement PPA with PCE, which would update the seller to be an affiliate of SunZia Wind PowerCo LLC, the current seller. The replacement PPA would have the same terms and conditions as those in the original agreement presented to the board tonight, except for administrative changes necessary to effectuate the separation or transition. The replacement PPA needs to be pre-approved by the board during the approval of the original PPA tonight in order for this structure to work. And staff will immediately inform the board if or when a replacement PPA has been requested by Pattern. Next slide, please. In terms of workforce, Pattern is going to pay New Mexico prevailing wage to all of the workers on the project. They will also be requiring the contractors to provide health and other applicable benefits to the workers doing work on this project. And Pattern and its EPC contractor, engineering, procurement, and construction contractor are currently finalizing the overall labor plan with the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers on the SunZia transmission project. And once completed, we expect approximately 350 IBEW jobs will be created during the peak construction period of the transmission project. Next slide, please. There's been substantial community support for the SunZia transmission project. It's hard to read, but here's a list of entities who have submitted public letters of support for the SunZia transmission project. We have copies of these letters available on the website, but the board materials tonight. Next slide, please. Staff performs an environmental review of all of our potential PPAs. This slide is, you've been here for previous PPA approvals. This is the same process slide we review at every PPA presentation. This just describes staff's process for review. So we have worked with environmental to develop a system. What we do is we take the geospatial footprint of the project and we compare it to databases that the environmental groups have recommended that highlight any protected areas at the federal, state, regional, and local levels that would be in conflict with developing renewable energy. Next slide, please. So specific to the SunZia project, the wind project is not located in a protected area based on the USGS protected area database. And the Bureau of Land Management, which has the main jurisdiction over the land use approval for this project, has issued their final land use approval document, the record of decision, last month in May. And those documents are available publicly online. Next slide, please. All right, we're going to move into the expected operations of the project and the fit in our portfolio. Next slide. It's a little small, but each of these boxes represents the expected generation profile for each month of the year in 2027. So the y-axis is showing the generation of the project in megawatt hours. The x-axis of each box is showing the hours of the day in an average day for the month. The top left box is January, and then as you move to the right across the top, you go through January, February, March, April. The center row is the summer months and the bottom row are the winter months. So you can see there is relatively high generation in the winter. And also in the summer, there's relatively low generation in the middle of the day, making this project an excellent complement for the solar resources in our portfolio, which tend to not produce in the winter and produce a lot in the middle of the day in the summer. Next slide, please. This slide shows how the project will contribute to our portfolio on an annual average basis in 2027. So the y-axis here is megawatt hours of supply or load, and the x-axis is hours of an average day over the course of the year. The black line is our expected load in 2027. The gray bars represent our executed portfolio as of today, which consists of geothermal, small hydro, wind, solar, and storage. The orange bars represent the addition that the SunZia wind project would make to our portfolio. You can see this project does lead to some over procurement in the summer months, but also does an excellent job of filling out the spaces we need to fill out in the winter or the overnight hours. Next slide, please. This is a very similar graph, but broken out by season. So the top left season is spring, top right is summer, bottom left is fall, and bottom right is winter. And you can see this project helps fill out a lot of the empty spaces we have in our fall and winter portfolios. It does add to some of the spring and summer. However, as we add more resources to our portfolio to meet 24/7 goal, we know that over procurement will be a part of what we do. And as we procure more storage resources, we will be able to shift that over procured or excess supply in the middle of the day to overnight hours. Slide, please. All right, next slide. So this project will be critical to helping us achieve our 24/7 goal, which is our priority one, to design a power portfolio sourced by 100% renewable energy that aligns supply and demand on a 24/7 basis by 2027. It also supports Power Resources goal number 2, which is to keep our power costs low and reliable and meet all of our regulatory mandates. Next slide, please. And as Mehdi mentioned in the previous presentation, but it's worth highlighting again, out-of-state wind is critical to the ability to meet our 24/7 goal in a cost-effective and low-risk way. So there's diminishing availability of in-state resources, as we talked about, while there still remains some out-of-state wind resources that we can contract with. And by using these out-of-state resources, we can have access to a better profile of generation that better fits our portfolio by providing higher amounts of energy in the winter and overnight periods. And again, while there are remaining wind projects available, they're still hard to come by. And SunZia Wind Project is a good project that comes online in time to meet our 2027 updated 2027 goal. And it's also coming at a good price. Next slide. I think the last is a reiteration of the recommendation. I know it's a long one, so we'll just leave it up there for you guys to consider and happy to answer any questions.
Thank you, Sarah. Good presentation.
I think it's very exciting. I'm new to the board, so this is probably a repeat for other people, but if you could explain the replacement PPA, that was confusing to me.
Let me help. Is a financial issue. So we'd be entering into a PPA with SunZia, which is a subsidiary of Pattern. Pattern needs to raise financial capital in order to build both the transmission line and the towers over this 1,000 square miles to generate 3.5 megawatts of power. And they're not gigawatts of power, correct? And they're not exactly sure. Some of the contracting parties are gonna require direct contracts with an individual party, and SunZia it will be too broad for that. So SunZia wants the flexibility to assign the contract effectively. It's really bringing in a new contracting partner that is an affiliate of them. And I read the terms in the contract that are required, and the way Sarah presented is exactly how it says that the terms and conditions of the original project will be identical in the replacement contract. So does it, I don't know if that answers the question, or if you want to add anything, please do.
I just wanted to say that this is the first time we've seen a replacement PPA contract, so in no way is this a question for me to ask. I think anyone would ask the same question.
Thank you.
And it was discussed at the EC in some detail, and there were a lot of questions about it.
Thank you.
Yes, I
have two questions. One dovetails off Leslie's. And just the nomenclature of administrative changes, I took to mean there might be minor cost adjustments associated. Am I reading that right? A and B, I am assuming there are minor cost changes that are possible, but if I'm understanding that right, and that's a big if, then are they actual minor changes that would be made?
There will be no change to the cost.
Oh, period.
It would be the selling entity and then the total capacity of the project. Our share would remain the same, but if they need to bifurcate a portion of the project, they would re-describe the new portion of the project with a lower capacity.
Okay. Thank you. And so the other question, and I've been here for 2.5 years and I still feel very new myself. So as I'm trying to wrap my head around some of these heavier concepts, it occurs to me with past procurement contracts, there was a basic question that escaped me until now, and maybe because this is such a big project, it's 13% of our portfolio. But do we have an option to renew after the 15 years have lapsed?
Great question. We often try to renew with projects that have been in our portfolio and performed well. We haven't yet come up on the end of a 15-year term for a new project, so don't know what that conversation looks like yet. But if this project performs well, I think we would request that we be considered in the renewal contract.
but there's not a renewal option in the contract.
There's not.
Okay, thank you very much.
We have done some renewals of existing contracts, so some shorter term contracts with existing projects. I think the counterparty likes to have the ability, and I'm sure in this case as well, in 15 years to be able to look at what the costs are and what the market price is, and be able to possibly, hopefully lower the price in 2041 when this contract.
Which makes sense, and even in a worst case scenario, should they have to readjust to market costs, it would be good to know that, we get the first right of refusal or some such. And so that's kind of.
I don't know that we have that. I don't think we have a river on that.
There's no right of first offer at the end of the term in our standard performance, but maybe it's something we should.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Dave.
Can you talk a little bit more about what happens with the excess? We have excess for generation during certain times of the year. You mentioned something that would be hopefully directed towards storage. Is there more to the storage?
Right, so we actually have this situation right now. There are many hours in the summer where we produce more energy than our customers use, and we just sell that energy to the California system. And we make market revenue based on whatever the system price is in that hour or 15-minute interval. We hope to continue to add storage to our portfolio so that we can store that energy and use it later in times when we're short.
And it also becomes more valuable later. That power that's generated in the middle of the day in the summer isn't very valuable.
Yes, I would just like to make a comment, sort of echoing Board Member Ragsdale's interest in this project. This is a very exciting project, and I'm just happy to be in the room tonight as the board discusses it. I appreciate the flipping of the agenda items too, because I think indeed hearing a bit more about what's required for us to reach this goal of 24/7 renewable and clean energy help tee up why this is such an important project. And I appreciated reading through. It seems to tick a lot of boxes that I think, earlier honoring Jan and Peninsula Clean Energy really embody what it is this organization is doing and why it's so important and great. Working with IBEW for prevailing wage in New Mexico and increasing hundreds of jobs. I really enjoyed reading the letters of support that were described in the presentation from a diversity of sources, Chamber of Commerce, building and construction trade unions, nonprofits that are focused on sustainable development, equity for underserved communities. That doesn't necessarily have to be part of a procurement project like this, but it does for Peninsula Clean Energy, and that's awesome and important. Thank you.
Well, let me see if there's any public comment. Is there any public comment?
I have some public comment, please, sir.
Great, okay.
If I may.
Please.
Good evening, Chair Tolia, Board of Directors, thank you for allowing me to speak here briefly tonight. At this point, Scott Wine with the IBEW Local 617 San Mateo, California, my apologies.
No problem.
It's great news that this transmission line is being built with representative unions, and Qantas was awarded the work to my knowledge, and it has assured the IBEW that most work will be done by the IBEW. However, they will be having a meeting in LaGrange, Texas on July 5th and 7th to discuss manpower and working agreements. However, I would like to reiterate that you're not purchasing power from a transmission line, you are purchasing power from a wind generation plant that if you look at the letters of support, it oftentimes references the transmission line. It doesn't oftentimes mention the wind project. At this time, the wind project is not being performed, has begun, and is not being performed by represented workers and does not have a PLA. With no PLA or represented workers on the job, we would be curious to know who is running compliance to ensure that wage theft and worker misclassification is not happening. IBEW would like to implore the board to consider tabling this motion until next month's meeting, until this July 5th and 7th meeting can happen, to ensure that the transmission work is going to indeed fall in line with your policy 10.3C, I believe. And also curious to why the urgency to vote now when it's taken over a year to get to this point. I absolutely recognize that the price is right, and that wind power is very valuable, but please don't be fooled by a cheap price on the backs of unrepresented workers. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? John Keener.
Yeah, John Keener, former board member. And also a member of the procurement subcommittee. This is a really important project for us. The price is good, that's true, but also, as was mentioned, the generation profile fits exactly with what we need. Higher output in the winter and in the evenings in the summers and less output during the daytime of the summer. So it's exactly complementary to solar. And it's a large project. And so I would recommend approval, of course. And I would also note on the labor front, New Mexico is not a union state. And, you know, there's nothing we can do about that. And that's where the actual generation will take place. So again, as sort of an ex officio member of the procurement committee, I would recommend approval of this tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there any other public comment? I don't see any public comment in the room. I don't see any more online. I'll close. Yeah, please.
Hi, I'm from Pattern.
Oh, yeah, I was gonna ask.
Yes,
Would
I
you-
wasn't sure.
No, please.
Sure.
Come up to the mic, and I was going to ask. You're sort of extra than public comment.
Head of the origination and marketing team, working very closely with Jan and Brooke and Sarah. We're very excited to have contracts coming before you all for approval. I'll just say this is our third PPA, and it is very important because it is an enabler of the project. We need to get into construction later this year. We need a certain amount of PPAs to be signed to satisfy our financing parties. And this is critical to making that happen. So I think there was a question about why now. That's why, so that we can get into construction and we can get online and start producing power and delivering to California. I will also note that we have someone here from Quanta. This is our EPC contractor for the transmission line. There are no PLAs directly with SunZia, but we work with people like Quanta that will be working directly with the IEBW and other union organizations. And then I also have our head of engineering and construction on the line, Derek Price, and he can speak to the wind farm and the overall infrastructure project and the level of job creation across the entire asset. So I would love it.
Yeah, maybe I'll go quickly. And I think, I'm sorry, I don't remember your name, but thanks for having me here. My name is Robin Christensen. I'm the president of our Quanta West LLC organization that does work out west and will be doing the construction on the transmission line as their EPC contractor. It is true, we are still in negotiations with the IEW, but please rest assured, Quanta Services as a whole is huge fan of using IBEW labor. We do it all the time. More than a third of our very large employee base is all represented employees, and we have strong relationships with the IBEW that dates back to the inception of Quanta Services. So we have almost 10,000 represented employees. You saw the 350 number there. Those are going to be new jobs created at the height of this particular construction. And we have every intention of using represented labor to the extent that it is available. I will note that in New Mexico in particular, at times the resources don't match the need. So if that occurs, that is our hope that it doesn't, but in the event that it does, we'll have to look at other options. But the intent is to leverage represented labor as much as possible. I'm happy to answer any questions as it relates to construction.
Any questions for Quanta? And just to be clear, as Scott mentioned, there are two different but completely interdependent projects here. One is to build the wind farm, and the other is to get the power from the wind farm to the west, which requires building the transmission line. So they're two totally different but very related things.
But did I understand you to say correctly that the people who are building the wind farm are on the phone?
So Pattern Energy is the developer of the project, and I am part of the team that gets all of the revenue contracts in place such as this. But Derek Price, our head of engineering and construction, is on the phone, and he can speak across both SunZia wind and transmission. So Derek, are you there?
You're muted.
We can see you.
All right, can you hear me now?
Yes.
All right, yeah, no, good evening. Nice to meet you. Yeah, Derek Price, head of our engineering procurement construction group for Pattern. So yeah, overseeing both the wind transmission project. I view it all as one, one is not good without the other. Ultimately, the transmission line is a long extension cord for the wind generation. Yeah, we will have, anywhere from 2,000 to 3,000 people working on the project at peak construction in a very rural part of New Mexico. As Robin rightfully pointed out, labor resources in that region, can vary with other demands of the market that we have to balance and provide execution certainty to you all, to our lenders and financing parties. As we mentioned in the PowerPoint slides, we are committed to paying all prevailing wages in New Mexico. We have a great relationship with the IBEW. We hope to expand and grow that as the renewable energy market continues to build out the infrastructure required to deliver the product where we need to. And IBEW and all union trades are going to be a huge part of that as the industry grows and we continue to train a new workforce, which is something we're fully committed to and are supportive of. And happy to take any questions anybody has across, the SunZia project.
Derek, yeah, we do have some questions. Go ahead, Rick.
Well, are you open to trying to work out a PLA?
We won't do a PLA directly as a project company with any of the unions for SunZia. New Mexico is a right to work state. We work with our contractors and they will work out the labor agreements with the IBEW and other trades as necessary to get the project completed.
Other questions, Carlos?
Yeah, I just want to confirm that you are committed to paying prevailing wage.
That's right. Yeah, it's stated in our contract, and yeah, we are fully committed to that. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions or?
I'll make a comment, actually.
Sure, go ahead.
The CEC has cited this project as an important out-of-state project, so I think we're really lucky to be able to sign this contract. And we should continue to watch to make sure all the labor issues are followed as our values set us forward. But I would like to second a motion that's on the table for this project.
You could make the motion. It hasn't
Oh,
been
I thought I
made
heard a
yet.
motion. I'll make the motion.
Okay. Okay, thank you. So I just wanted to clarify, Peninsula Clean Energy has an important workforce policy that requires prevailing wage to be paid. That's good. Our preference is to have a PLA. I hear that that's something that you're interested in, and it sounds like there's some resource constraint. I did see the supportive letters from the building trade and the IBEW in New Mexico focus only on the transmission line, not focused on the project. It's an issue that we address in every contract that we approach. So, thank you. Go ahead, Rick.
And the thing that I don't quite, and I'm sorry, but the thing I don't quite understand is the PLA doesn't necessarily demand that it be all late, that it all be labor, even in a right to work state. It just sets forth what agreements will be addressing labor on the workforce. And so I'm not sure what would be the impediment, even in a right to work state, to try to work out a PLA with unions there.
Yeah, I think we mentioned earlier, those discussions are kind of ongoing. And we are, we continue to explore all of our labor options. As I mentioned, New Mexico, Albuquerque is a fairly large city, but the workforce in that area is not what we need for the project. So we need to be able to have some flexibility a PLA does require, full union across the board. And while we will be hiring a significant amount of union employees, we just need some of that flexibility to be able to provide certainty on delivering our project on time. And, and most importantly, safely.
Can I make a comment?
Sure.
We're also the developer of the Western Spirit Wind Project that came online at the end of last year. While Western Spirit did not directly have a PLA, we do have very favorable statistics of the amount of workforce and the type of workforce. So I don't know, Derek, if you want to try to color some of that. We're basically saying we don't have a project labor agreement now, but there will be different types of labor and workforce represented across Sandia. We just don't have those statistics at this point because it's not pre-wired is the point.
Yeah, Western Spirit was, size wise was a little bit smaller, but there was a large transmission component to that, which I still consider part of the generation facility. We had constructed that line, with about 90% union labor across the board. We had union members, IBEW, working on the wind farm. And quite honestly, we will hire any IBEW member that comes through the New Mexico Hall on our projects because we really need the resources. It's been mentioned several times that the delays to some of these projects are around labor shortages. So we are happy to hire, as many people as we can through the union halls as they're trained and qualified to work on our projects.
Alice, did you have a comment?
Yeah, I had a follow-up question that actually the union brother in the room just who addressed this earlier brought up. What safeguards do you have or will you put in place to make sure that indeed the prevailing wage that I pulled down from the New Mexico Labor Department, that prevailing wage is actually paid? So will you be monitoring that and will you actually be hiring a third-party entity to do so, as I certainly have a many prevailing wage jobs?
Yeah, I mean, this is the same prevailing wage requirements that we have that we're doing right now are similar to what we had on Western Spirit. The same contractual language that we have with y'all extends to our EPC contracting partners, and we have audit rights. We have the ability to monitor that and audit whenever we need to. So if you guys are going to have auditors, that's perfect. They're required, and we're requiring them to provide all the requisite information to support the prevailing wage requirements.
Yeah, I guess my question is, are you providing the auditors, or are you saying you
We
want us
can.
to provide?
Oh, yeah, however you want to do it, we can. If you guys require an audit, we can perform one. Absolutely.
And I would think it makes sense if this is, and I'm a little confused about New Mexico because it shows up on the map as actually not a right to work state. But I've just heard from you guys that it's a right to work state, but I certainly think that this cannot be a 100% union labor job, because of, who you have access to, in the surrounding area, the surrounding states. That indeed there should be some sort of audit function that indeed, quantifies and clarifies that the prevailing wage of the state is being paid. And I think right now it's like $66 an hour. In this state, it's about 87, but it's definitely a living wage. So yeah, I would love to have you guys to know that you guys are actually doing the auditing and checking.
Yep. Yeah, you have our commitment on that.
Thank you.
Well, go ahead. Well, and so, I mean, I'm sorry to belabor, but my understanding of the PLA is that PLA is just a project labor agreement. It doesn't need to specify that everyone on the job site be labor. Now, they usually do, but they can say simply within the representation that you made here, anyone who comes into, anyone who's available at the hall, if we have a vacancy, we'll hire from labor first. Now, that doesn't, you made that representation to us here now, if that's formalized, and we don't really need then would that satisfy what your concerns are?
I mean, as long as you guys are reviewing those compliance reports, you know, and it's actually being provided and reviewed,
Right.
it would make us feel better.
Should we check with Jan? Are you okay?
Go ahead.
Jan, I just wanted to check with staff. So this is additional, this is, you know, a process that probably we're gonna hear about more. Is staff comfortable getting reports and doing a review on this, or if we hire like auditors or somebody to do that review for us? How would we do that? The
There are
PLA.
firms that do it, Jan.
Yeah.
There are
Yeah.
firms, it
So-
can usually cost me like 30 or 40,000.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think we did that for, another project.
No, we did.
I
Yeah,
don't remember
yeah.
which project it was. It wasn't.
So I think that's a good resolution, is to have, if we don't have staff on board to do it, we can, you know, I think this board would agree that spending $30,000 or $40,000 to have the.
This is a little larger project that I'm talking about 80.
$1,000. It's pretty easy to audit the numbers, I would hope. So anyways, we have a resolution for that or a process for that, it sounds like. That we can employ. In other words, we don't have a, we're thin staff, so I don't want have our staff being auditing these projects. It just, our staff can't do it. So I think we need to agree and know there's gonna be a consistency with it. So we have a lot of money. Might be one of the great ways to spend some of our money, which is making sure that we audit and take care of the workers on this project. So, you know, I think it's worth spending it.
Question to the chair. Required by the contractors, to report their wages to for the PLA, or is it mandatory reporting of them already?
There,
For the contractor?
there are state requirements. I don't know exactly what the requirement is in New Mexico, but Derek, can you address that? And it sounds like there is an audit trail. Somebody obviously has to do that audit. Are there reports that you have to provide to the state that show that you're complying with prevailing wage?
We'll provide to the states, you know, what their wages that they're getting paid. There is not a requirement that we have to submit, you know, what we've done to pay prevailing wage. That's really between, that goes through that audit rights that you have to do that. But there's no requirement to the state that you have to pay, send them a report on like a quarterly basis. So it would be independent. We would do it independently, I guess is the short answer.
Chair, if we're to require these audits, does that mean the motion on the floor needs to be amended?
We
Let's try to hear a consensus, that's what we're thinking before. it's done.
I mean, I think direction to, David, would direction to the staff be sufficient? Or does that need to be-
So the current agreement requires that they use commercially reasonable efforts to ensure that all employees are paid at prevailing wage. So the contract requires that. So what I'm hearing is the board wants something added to the agreement that provides for a mechanism to verify that the contract is being complied with. Is that what I'm hearing? If so, and I'm assuming that we could negotiate that, yes, you could simply approve the motion with direction to staff to approve it with in addition to the contract that would provide for reasonable means to verify compliance with section 4.11 of the contract.
Mhm. And it sounds like it's on.
Assuming we can negotiate.
And
All right.
I'm sure we can negotiate it, especially if we're paying for it.
Yeah.
Can I clarify, Derek, it sounds like you were suggesting that we can pay for an audit across Sundia, and I want to clarify, this is a 3.5 gigawatt project, and it's fine to do an audit
the PPA is 200 megawatts, so
Yeah.
the audit would be across all 3.5 gigawatts is what I'm trying to say.
And I think that makes sense because you're gonna have other contracting parties than us. We're only 6% of the deal.
Right, but I will just say that the provision in the contract that's being read actually applies to the facility. It doesn't just apply to the, PCE share of the facility, right? So it's already sort of kind of contractually represented. But Derek, for us to kind of agree to this in the contract, I just wanted to confirm that you're saying we would pay for the audit and that would be our way to prove that we're sort of complying with this section of the contract.
Correct.
Yep, yeah, so I think it would just be a small change to just say that, we would demonstrate, right, compliance with this section of the contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, or provide information upon request. I mean, that's, we could do it a couple different ways. If it's not already
Yeah.
included, I'd be surprised if it's not, but.
Just one more quick thing, if I can, this is not our first project in New Mexico. We talked about Western Spirit, but we have 1.6 gigawatts of assets wind assets that we have built in New Mexico that deliver power to California. So, there is a track record here, and what Derek is saying is from our experience of hiring construction workers on all of our wind assets in New Mexico. We're the biggest wind developer in the state that's delivering power to California and the West. So I just wanted to clarify that.
So I'm listening to everyone. It sounds like I see a lot of head nods that an amendment is appropriate. So I'll move to amend approval of the resolution directing the staff to work with SunZia to perform an audit on.
Can I suggest, I'm sorry.
Yeah, no, please, go ahead.
Just to direct staff to amend the agreement to provide a reasonable mechanism to verify that the prevailing wage requirements of the contractor are met.
That's my amendment. Gonna say anything.
Is that
Who's the second? Hold on.
Is that a proposed cost?
Yes.
Yeah.
That's a fact. They're gonna do that for the whole contract. We're at 6%.
That makes sense. Ellie, did you need the words for that?
I think I got it, but I just want to repeat that. To amend the agreement or to direct staff to amend the agreement to provide a reasonable mechanism requirements of the contractor met.
It sounds like they're agreeing to it. This is kind of an amazing thing. So I guess we can add to that at SunZia's expense.
Is that good? I think that is good with the maker. Right, so we'll settle it. So we'll make it.
Okay. So we have a motion and a second.
Before we vote.
Sure.
And this optimum.
Yes.
I just, thank you for bearing with that conversation. I just wanted to say to you, based on your last comments, we often have robust discussions around labor. We appreciate you bearing with us as we are a board that is acutely sensitive to labor. So thank you for riding with that conversation. It's not out of the ordinary for us.
No problem.
Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. I don't think we have any board members online. Okay, all in favor? Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, thank you. The next item. Our biggest, that will be our biggest resource. The next item on the agenda is approval of the resolution approving appointment of Sean Marshall as the Chief Executive Officer and an agreement for her service as CEO for a 3-year term beginning July 2023 and an amount not to exceed $100,000 annually. And as introduction to this item, I just want to give a little bit of background. Following a robust recruitment process, as well as a comparative review of other salaries in the market, our ad hoc committee of this board are proposing that we appoint Sean Marshall as PCE's next CEO. We've all heard about the impact that Jan has had over these last six years. And I think we all know that PCE is absolutely at a point of transition, not just transition of our CEO, which is really our most significant transition. But we're moving into a growth company. And with that growth company has all kinds of demands and policy issues that will come before us as a board. And the subcommittee is confident that Sean can lead us and the staff in a way to address those issues that will be very positive and take us in a new path as we go forward with this larger organization in this new world. A copy of the proposed employment agreement between Peninsula Clean Energy and Sean Marshall was provided to the board and is part of the public packet tonight. The following is a summary of that agreement. The term for her employment will be for 3 years with a potential for renewal. Her base salary will be $375,000 with eligibility for a bonus of up to $25,000 and potential raises in future years. She will receive the same benefits as the other members of Peninsula Clean Energy's management. So if there's any questions that anyone has, you've all seen the contract. I don't see any questions. Let me see if there's any public comment.
Yes. My name is Bruce Carney. I live in Mountain View. I'm a big fan and follower of the CCA movement. I attend every SVCE board meeting, and I am delighted that Sean Marshall will be your next CEO. Silicon Valley Clean Energy would not exist if it were not for Sean. About 7 years ago, she made a presentation to the Santa Clara County Cities Association, which she laid out the benefits of community choice. The representatives at that meeting decided to investigate it, and a couple of years later, SVCE came into existence. During my time as the chair of Carbon Free Mountain View, later a member of Carbon Free Silicon Valley, later a member of Fossil Free Building Silicon Valley, I had the opportunity to go to every city council in Santa Clara County. We didn't have the 100% positive vote that San Mateo County did. We had a few who couldn't see the future. But Sean has always been wonderful at helping people see the future. There is so much that CCAs in California and in other states have done and will do to solve the climate crisis. Without Sean, I just don't know whether I could have any optimism about the future at all. But here we are in Redwood City, the city whose climate is best and whose climate is going to get better and better and better. And the next 3 years go by, I'm sure you'll want to give this woman a raise and hire her for another 3.
Thank you.
Any other public comment? John.
Yes, John Keener, former board member from Pacifica. You know, Sean was a primary reason why Peninsula Clean Energy was formed in the first place. And now she's about to become the chief executive officer. This is almost poetic. You know, all I can say is welcome. So thank you.
Thank you. Jeff.
I've known Sean for 8.5 years. You presented to us in December of 2014, I believe it was, at Council of Cities. That was my first exposure to all this stuff. The fact that you're here now is pretty amazing. With all you've done. So welcome also, and I will move to approve the appointment.
Second.
Thank you. Okay. Any other comments from anybody on the board? Don't see any comments, all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions?
Yeah.
Ready there.
Have, 30 seconds.
Absolutely. You could have a minute.
But no, where the time, like, where? Bring this up. So I just want to say, I'm going to take this off for a moment. I want to just express my tremendous gratitude for the trust you've placed in me. I want to thank Supervisor Dave Pine, who actually was instrumental in hiring me for the county of San Mateo to take this journey and explore CCA with the county and help lead the way. So thank you for that. I also want to tell you that I am humbled by the large shoes that I had to fill at Jan Lee's. I'm aware of that. And I'm grateful for your mentorship. I will do my daily best to continue to lead this organization in the way that it has been led, to lead in the spirit of innovation, in the spirit of customer service, and in a way where we continue to have smart and dedicated professionals who want to come to work for us every day. So with that, I will just say I'm honored. I'm so appreciative. I really can't believe it, if I'm honest. And it feels like coming home. So I love this agency. I love the people here, and I look forward to working with you. Thank you. Thank you.
We are going to delay the regionalization study session. It's after 9 o'clock. Sure.
So, certainly, I agree with that. I just want to say a couple things. So there's a bill in the legislature, and there has been a lot of discussion about California expanding into a more regionalized transmission system among a number of western states. And it's a complex issue. We scheduled a study session here for you tonight to introduce the issues around this potential change. Because you might start getting requests to either support or oppose regionalization. And we ask that you hold off on taking any positions until we can provide you with the background so we can conduct the study session next month, walk through the pros and cons of such change so that you're in full understanding of it. And then we can take a position. So just ask you to hold on until next month, and Jeremy and Mark will be ready to go and talk about it.
So I know that bill was made a 2-year bill. I know that's always possible that it could come back. But I thought it was made a 2-year bill.
Yeah, this year.
Okay, great. So the last item on the agenda is any board member reports. We're going to have Kate. Yes.
It would be up to me to stand in the way of cake. However, excursion to Paso Robles, I want to let everyone know, not aware of this art installation called Sensario. It is literally a field of lights. It is one of the most beautiful things I've ever seen in my life. And if you happen to be in Paso Robles, perhaps for your summer vacation, do check it out. It's all solar powered. It's gorgeous. Sensario.
The same thing.
Yeah.
Okay. Another report? Okay, we're adjourned.